All right, let's just skip the pleasantries today and jump right in because we've got a serious wake up call for startup founders and builders. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're zeroing in on the absolute phenomenon that is vibe coding. The ability to just spin up software using natural language and AI without writing a single line of traditional code. It feels like magic, right? It feels like the ultimate democratizer. But today, we're going to completely tear down the illusion that simply generating an AI app makes you a successful tech founder. We're diving into the hard economics, the impending platform squeeze, and most importantly, the exact blueprint you need to pivot from having zero moats to building real, undeniable defensibility. Because, as our source material perfectly puts it, here's the brutal truth about vibe coding: no sugarcoating, no mercy. If you're currently building a thin wrapper application, a basic utility or a simple dashboard using AI tools, you really need to hear this. Look, the initial rush of creating a functional app in like 4 minutes is intoxicating, is awesome. But building an app and building a business, those are two entirely different things. We've got to shatter the illusion right now that easy execution somehow equals market value. 100,000. Let that number sink in for a second. That is the number of apps the platform Lovable generates every single day, 100,000 per day. Now, our sources point out something crucial here. This isn't a success metric. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a confession. They're basically announcing to the market that your app is just one of 100,000 identical in cost artifacts produced that very same day. Think about basic econ 101. When supply becomes infinite and the marginal cost to produce something is literally zero, the price of that thing plummets to zero. Your app is no longer a unique product. It's just a unit of infinite output. So, what does this all mean? Well, it means we really have to understand what actually protects a business. We have to anchor ourselves in the concept of an economic moat. A moat is your durable competitive advantage. We're talking network effects, proprietary data, regulatory capture, or deep switching costs. It's something that costs a competitor serious time, capital, or irreplaceable skill to replicate. But today, tools like Bolt and Cursor can spin up functional CRUD apps, create, read, update, delete in literally 4 minutes. Because that execution is free, the app itself has become a worthless commodity. There is zero time, zero capital, and zero skill required for someone else to clone your exact feature set. You can really see the stark contrast here between temporary hype and true survival. Think about thin wrappers. These are your calculators, your simple booking flows, your basic dashboards. They have absolutely zero switching costs, no locked-in user behavior, and a competitor can rebuild them in minutes. Users are going to leave the second a cheaper or better version pops up. And believe me, it will pop up, because building it costs nothing. Now compare that to durable moats: proprietary data pipelines, network effects, regulatory capture. This is where survival lives. It's the brutal difference between a totally vulnerable vibe-coded tool and a genuinely defensible business model. Section 1. The coming platform squeeze. Trapped in the middle. So, what exactly happens to all the platforms that are enabling this vibe coding craze? Well, our sources break down 3 specific directions these middle layer platforms are getting squeezed from. First, they're being commoditized upward by the model layer. The very second OpenAI or Anthropic ships a first-class native app building interface, that whole third-party layer just collapses. Second, they're being commoditized downward by the hosting layer, places like Vercel or AWS, which are baking AI directly into deployment. And third, they're being bypassed entirely by local user agents. That's AI sitting right on your device, knowing your full context and building for you without a middle platform at all. Any technical edge these platforms think they have right now, it doesn't survive a 90-day window. Section 2. The creative web condenses. Distribution is the only moat. And hey, it's not just developers feeling the heat here. Creatives and marketers are actually getting hit the hardest and the fastest by this wave. For them, the app isn't just irrelevant, the entire workflow pipeline is being automated. A brand that vibe-coded a cool campaign microsite last year, they're now competing with Sora, Midjourney, Meta Advantage Plus, and Google Performance Max doing the whole pipeline natively. The web itself is condensing. When ChatGPT or Claude gives a user the exact answer immediately, AI is retrieving and synthesizing in one shot. Traffic collapses, discovery collapses. People just don't visit 12 different websites anymore. That means the long tail of utility apps, which is where like 90% of vibe-coded output lives, loses its audience before it even has the chance to build one. Which brings us to the giant elephant in the room. When exactly does vibe coding die as a standalone category? When does this whole cultural fad officially run out of runway? Let's walk through this concrete timeline so you can see exactly how fast this window is closing. By the end of 2026, the VC money flowing into pure-play vibe coding platforms dries up. The unit economics are already breaking. Platforms are paying massive inference costs for apps that users just abandon in a few days. By 2027, the novelty is fully gone. People will realize asking an AI to build an app wasn't actually easier than just asking the AI for the answer directly. Vibe coding is going to feel as dated as growth hacking or the metaverse. And by 2028 or 2029, the category is a footnote. Whatever tech survives gets absorbed into professional IDEs like GitHub Copilot Workspace, acting as an accelerant, not a standalone consumer product. Section 3. The Pivot Playbook, Building Real Defensibility. Okay, let's dive into this and pivot hard from the problem to some highly actionable blueprints. Founders, listen up, because this is your binary choice. You must aggressively abandon generic commodity tools built on public data. Those are easily cloned utilities. Instead, you have to relentlessly pursue proprietary data and deep integrations. Locked-in workflows and deep institutional relationships, those are your only real shields. This is the absolute core advice from our sources today. Ditch the easy, flashy utilities and commit to the hard work of deep integration. Let's rapid fire through 5 defensible pivots you can make right now. First up, vertical AI agents. We aren't talking about general builders here. We're talking about, say, a medical intake system that is deeply integrated with specific electronic health records. Second, enterprise compliance infrastructure. Big companies need internal tools, but they're completely blocked by SOC 2 and HIPAA requirements. Handling that messy plumbing creates massive switching costs. Third, AI-native creative infrastructure for IP owners. So, managing and licensing AI-generated derivatives for actual studios, not just random users. Fourth, deep workflow automation. You want to build the connective tissue between existing systems. And fifth, education and credentialing outcomes. Notice a theme here? None of these are just simple apps. The painful 18-month enterprise integration cycles required for these, they're actually a feature, not a bug, because they create real, tangible switching costs that protect your business. To put it incredibly bluntly, and I love this analogy from our sources, vibe coding is the selfie stick of software development. It was wildly exciting when it first popped up, it was genuinely useful for a brief, fleeting moment, and then it was commoditized into a $3 accessory you buy at an airport kiosk without even thinking about it. Counting 100,000 generated apps is exactly like counting $3 airport kiosk accessories sold back in 2015 and trying to call it a durable software business. The volume is totally real, but the moat is completely non-existent. So here is the absolute core takeaway you need to internalize. When building is free, the build is worthless. The application itself is now just a byproduct. The real value, the only defensible value, lies entirely in the underlying proprietary assets you own. The future belongs exclusively to whoever owns the proprietary data, the direct distribution channels, or those deep institutional relationships. Everything else is just noise. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to really chew on. Take a hard look at what you're spending your time and capital on today. Are you genuinely building a durable business with a real economic moat, proprietary data, and deep integrations? Or are you just buying a $3 accessory, playing around with a generic commodity tool before your runway runs out? The window to pivot is open right now, but man, it is closing incredibly fast. Make that hard pivot to defensibility today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building smart.